to the fourth and final video for Chapter 2 of the PMBOK. This module will focus on the project lifecycle. In addition, we will review the characteristics of the generic lifecycle structure. Finally, we will examine the project phases and different types of project lifecycles. Project lifecycle. The project lifecycle is the series of phases all projects go through from the project initiation to the project closure. The phases occur chronologically, and the names of the phases are determined by the organization and the project manager. The phases are usually broken down by functional objectives, results of deliverables, financial availability, or milestones within the scope of the project. The life cycle provides the framework for managing the project regardless of the actual work involved. Life cycles are usually predictive or adaptive. Characteristics of the project life cycle. Projects are very different in terms of size, scope, and complexity, but most projects go through 4 generic life cycle structures. These include the following: starting the project, organizing and preparing, carrying out the project work, and closing the project. Projects generally have the same characteristics at the various points in the life cycle structure. During the starting point of the project, the risk and uncertainty are at the highest peak. These factors decrease as the project continues to go through the life cycle and more decisions are made about the end deliverables of the project. The cost of the project and the individuals involved in the project are low at the start and continually increase before peaking during the carrying out of the project work phase of the project. Projects are usually divided into different phases that contain tasks and deliverables that are similar in nature in terms of the work required. The different phases are linked together to create the end result of the project. Dividing the project into phases allows for easier management, planning, and control of the project. All project phases end with a portion of the project being transferred or handed to another project team member or the end user. Most organizations have established policies that standardize all projects. However, some organizations are more flexible and allow the project manager to tailor the phases to meet the needs of the project. When projects have more than one phase, the phases are usually a part of a sequential process that allows for control of the project. There are 2 main types of face-to-face relationships. The first is the sequential relationship. In this relationship, a phase starts only when the previous phase has ended. This approach often leads to less uncertainty, but does not help reduce the overall time of the project. The second type is the overlapping relationship. During this relationship, a phase starts prior to the completion of the previous one. This approach is usually applied to reduce the project's time, but can result in greater risk as unforeseen changes might be made that impact another portion of the project or require additional changes. Predictive life cycles. Predictive life cycles are those where the project scope, time, and cost are all determined early on in the project life cycle. These projects are either sequential or overlapping and are preferred when the project being completed is well understood and most of the planning can be done at the beginning of the project. Iterative and incremental life cycles. Iterative and incremental life cycles are those where the project phases intentionally repeat one or more project activities as the team's understanding of the project increases. Iteration develops the project deliverable by repeating the different cycles, and the increments add to the functionality and complexity of the project. These projects may proceed in phases, and the iterations can be completed sequentially or overlapping. During this life cycle, a high level of vision will be developed for the entire project. However, the details of the scope will be determined one iteration at a time. This life cycle is generally used when the organization wants to manage the objectives and the scope of the project and to reduce risk by allowing for feedback and lessons learned during the iterations. Adaptive life cycles, also known as the Agile method, are used to respond to high levels of change and ongoing stakeholder involvement. This life cycle uses iterations as well, but they are very quickly accomplished and each have a fixed time and cost. As one iteration is completed, another level of planning is conducted before moving forward. This life cycle allows for more flexibility in the project and works well where scope is or cannot be clearly defined. So that's it for Chapter 2 of the PMBOK. In Module 1, we focused on different organizational cultures and styles and their impact on projects. We also reviewed the impact the organizational structure has on how projects are performed. In Module 2, we identified project stakeholders and discussed project governance, or aligned the needs and objectives of the project with the project scope. In Module 3, we focused on the project team and reviewed the various people that make up the project team. In Module 4, we examined the project lifecycle. We reviewed the characteristics of the generic lifecycle structure and examined the project phases and the different types of project life cycles. So that's it for Chapter 2, and we look forward to seeing you soon for the first video in Chapter 3.